The pathetic situation at Manchester United. Manchester United have a serious squad problem. And I'm not talking about the number of players. I'm talking about availability, quality, and what this squad actually looks like when injuries start taking important players away. Because United are now back in the Champions League. That means more matches, more competition, more rotation, and much less room for having a thin squad. Let's start with Matthijs de Ligt. He is injured. That's the fact. He has been out with a back injury, but he has now returned to training. Michael Carrick said he was not yet ready to be involved, but that he was moving in the right direction. So there is no mystery about why De Ligt hasn't featured under Carrick. The real question is what United's squad looks like while important players are unavailable. And that's where things become concerning. Lisandro Martinez has also had his own fitness problems. Manuel Ugarte is unavailable with a serious knee injury. Mason Mount has had another injury issue. Benjamin Sesko missed preseason with injury. And United are still trying to improve the squad before the transfer window closes. This is not about blaming Carrick. It's about the reality of the squad he has to manage. Because when several players are unavailable, the quality of the replacements becomes extremely important. Look at United's defense. Luke Shaw, Diogo Dalot, Noussair Mazraoui, Patrick Dorgu, Harry Maguire, Leny Yoro, Lisandro Martinez, Matthijs de Ligt, Aiden Heaven. That sounds like plenty of defenders, but numbers don't automatically equal quality, and they certainly don't guarantee availability. Luke Shaw has had a long history of injuries. Martinez has had major injury problems. De Ligt is currently recovering. So United have to be careful about assuming every player will be available throughout the season. And this is where I think the comparison with Arsenal becomes uncomfortable. Look at Arsenal's current squad. William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes, Ben White, Ricardo Calafiori, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, Kai Havertz, and now they've added more attacking quality. The point isn't that Arsenal have no weaknesses. They do. The point is that their squad has been built around a clear football structure. There is continuity. There are established players, there are young players developing behind them, and there is competition for places. United are still trying to reach that level of squad stability. And that's the part that concerns me, because United have spent enormous amounts of money on players over recent years. Yet we are still talking about positions where injuries to one or two players can completely change the team's balance. Look at left back. If Shaw is unavailable, who gives United the same level of experience? Dorgu has potential, but potential is not the same thing as proven Premier League quality. And that distinction matters, because United aren't competing in a development league. They are competing in the Premier League, and now they are competing in the Champions League as well. The same issue exists in central defense. When everyone is fit, United have options. But when injuries arrive, the options become much more complicated. And that is why squad depth isn't about counting names. It's about having players you trust to perform at the required level when they are called upon. Now look at midfield. This is actually where United have improved significantly. Youri Tielemans brings experience and passing quality. Andrey Santos brings physicality and energy. Carlos Baleba adds ball-winning ability and athleticism. Kobbie Mainoo gives United another technical option. Bruno Fernandes remains the creative leader. That is a much more interesting midfield than United had before. But again, the players have to work together, and the system has to make sense. You cannot simply buy 5 midfielders and assume the problem has disappeared. Carrick has to create the right combinations, and that takes time. But there is another problem. United still have players whose futures and roles aren't completely clear. Marcus Rashford is one of them. Joshua Zirkzee is another. Ahmad is another player competing for attacking minutes. And then there is the new attacking group. Matheus Cunha, Brian Mbomo, Benjamin Sesko. United have options. But now Carrick has to decide which players are actually good enough to become regular starters. That's the difference between having a squad and having a strong squad. And Arsenal are a useful comparison because their players already understand what Arteta wants. The structure is established, the roles are clearer, the recruitment has been more consistent. United are still putting pieces together, and that is why I think this season is going to tell us a lot. Because last season, United finished third. That sounds good. But finishing third doesn't doesn't automatically mean the squad is ready to compete for the title, especially when you're adding Champions League football. The workload increases, the pressure increases, and injuries become even more important. United could potentially play around 60 matches this season. That means Carrick cannot rely on 11 players. He needs 16, 17, 18 players capable of contributing, and not just filling gaps, actually contributing. That's the standard. And this is where I think United fans need to be brutally honest. Are all these players good enough? Are they reliable enough? Are they fit enough? And are they suited to Carrick's football? Because if the answer is no, United have to eventually make changes, not because every player is terrible, but because the standard has to rise. Take Ligt as an example. When he returns, United need the best version of him, not the reputation of the player, the actual performances. The same applies to Martinez. The same applies to Shaw. The same applies to Dalot. The same applies to every player in this squad. Availability matters. Performance matters. Consistency matters, and injuries matter. You cannot build a season around players who are constantly unavailable, but you also cannot simply discard good players because they are injured. The answer is better squad planning, and that's where Arsenal have an advantage. They have spent years building a squad around a consistent football philosophy. United are still trying to create that consistency, and this is probably the biggest difference between the two clubs right now. Arsenal look like a team. United still look like a project. There are talented players at United. There are exciting new signings. There are young players with potential. But the question is whether Carrick can turn all of that into a coherent team. And that is going to be much harder once the Champions League starts, because European football will expose weaknesses. If your squad is thin, you'll see it. If your midfield lacks balance, you'll see it. If your defense lacks depth, you'll see it. If your attacking options aren't producing, you'll see it. And if your players can't stay fit, you'll definitely see it. That's why I don't think the solution is simply signing another famous player. United need to identify specific weaknesses. They need to improve the positions where the squad genuinely lacks quality. And they need to stop confusing quantity with depth, because having 9 defenders doesn't mean you have 9 reliable defenders. Having 5 midfielders doesn't mean you have 5 midfielders who complement each other. Having 6 attackers doesn't mean you have 6 players capable of producing goals and assists consistently. That's the real test. Quality, availability, fit, and consistency. And when I look at Arsenal, that's what makes the comparison so interesting. They have Saka, they have Odegaard, they have Rice, they have Saliba, they have Gabriel. They have a squad that has been developed together. United are still trying to figure out which players belong in the long-term picture. And that's why this season matters so much. Carrick has the opportunity to establish that. He has new midfielders, he has new attacking players, he has experienced players, he has young players. Now he needs to turn them into a team. And I think that is the biggest challenge facing Manchester United. Not whether De Ligt is being ignored, he isn't. He's injured. Not whether United have enough names on the squad list, they do. The question is whether enough of those players are available and good enough when United need them. Because that's what separates a decent squad from a Champions League squad. And that's what separates a Champions League squad from a title-winning squad. Manchester United have made progress, but Arsenal show exactly how much work is still left. The talent is there, the money has been spent, the Champions League is back. Now the squad has to prove that it deserves to be there. And if United want to compete at the highest level, they need fewer question marks, more reliable players, more competition for places, better injury management, and a much clearer identity, because Manchester United cannot keep rebuilding forever. At some point, the rebuild has to become a team.